Chapter 10, Lesson 2. In this lesson, we're going to continue talking about the importance of nutrition, and more importantly, we're going to begin talking about the different nutrients that our body needs in order to grow, to develop, and repair some of the damage that we might be causing on a day-to-day basis. This is a visual right here that hopefully gets us thinking about the fact that it's really important that we really manage the type of foods that we put into our diet. We're careful about where those calories come from. I think something that's also important for us to know is from time to time we may make a decision to eat fast food. We might make a decision to have desserts and treats and things like that. And it's okay to do so, but we want to make sure that if and when we do so, we're going to do so in moderation. It's going to be sparingly. And more importantly, we want to make sure that the bulk of our diet is going to be made of the right kinds of foods, contain the right kind of nutrients. Now, speaking of nutrients, nutrients are things that our body needs because food, in essence, is going to help to provide us with energy. Food is also going to help to heal and to build and to repair tissue. It's going to help to sustain growth. It's going to help to transport oxygen to cells. It's going to help regulate many body functions. What was talked about in lesson number 1 is we have 6 really important nutrients. We call these essential nutrients. We have carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. One thing that's really important to remember about these nutrients, these are the only nutrients that provide energy. And if you remember from lesson number 1, energy really is its calories. So when you look at a food label, many times you're going to see the total calories that are in that food, and it's also going to tell you how many of those calories are carbohydrates, how many are proteins, and how many are fats. So it's really important to remember that those are what we call our energy nutrients. The last 3 are your vitamins, minerals, and water. Those 3, none of them provide energy. There are no calories that come from vitamins, minerals, and water, but they have a really important function in the body because they act as regulators. They help other processes function. They help your body metabolize and break down carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. They obviously have a lot of really important functions, even if they are not providing you with calories. So once again, our 6 types of nutrients: carbos, proteins, and fats, vitamins, minerals, and water. The first one we're going to talk about is carbohydrates. Now, carbohydrates, to a certain degree, have gotten kind of a bad reputation. I'm quite certain there's probably many of you out there who have heard of somebody or maybe even know somebody who's gone on a special diet where they tried to minimize the amount of carbohydrates that they're putting into their diet. There's a really famous diet out there called the Atkins diet, where people were really restricting carbohydrate intake. And there's this belief out there that because somebody doesn't eat carbohydrates, that they would lose weight. And there might be some truth to that, but the reality is if you cut carbohydrates out of your diet, which means you're cutting out snacks, you're cutting out sugars, okay, you're cutting out fruits, you're cutting out breads, you're cutting out pastas, etc. When you cut those foods out of your diet, the reason why somebody might initially lose some weight, it isn't so much because they're not eating carbohydrates, it's really because they're not eating as many calories as what they typically eat. But I think it's also important that we remember as well, I shouldn't say remember, but that you also know, is that your body is capable of storing about 1 pound of carbohydrates in and of itself. We call that stored energy. Well, when you store 1 pound of carbohydrates, your body also has to store approximately 4 pounds of water. So if I go on a carbohydrate diet and I no longer eat carbohydrates, my body is forced to burn the 1 pound of carbohydrates for energy, and when it burns the 1 pound of carbohydrates, it's also going to burn the 4 pounds of stored water. So within a day or 2 of me being on a special diet, I might hop on that scale and say, wow, I've lost 5 pounds. Really, I've lost 5 pounds of water. As soon as I begin drinking water or adding carbohydrates back into my diet, that weight's going to go back on. So as you guys see right here, carbohydrates, these are starches and sugars found in the body. I'm sorry, not found in the body, but found in your foods. It's really important that you guys understand that carbohydrates are your body's preferred source of energy. Yes, your body can get energy from fats. It can also get energy from protein, but your body, in essence, when it needs energy, it converts your sugars into glucose, and it's much easier for your body to take a sugar coming from a fruit, a vegetable, a pasta, a bread, etc., and convert that into energy. They can do it more efficiently than if it's trying to convert fat or proteins. As you can see here, guys, carbohydrates supply 4 calories per gram, and that's important to know because when you look at your different food items, many of your nutrients are going to be listed in grams. So once again, 4 calories per gram. And health experts recommend that approximately 45 to 65% of our total caloric intake on a day-to-day basis should come from carbohydrates. The younger and the more active you are, probably the closer to 65%. And as we get older in life and as our activity level decreases, we would probably be 45%. So really, more than half of our total calories per day should be coming from carbohydrates. We just want to make sure that they're coming from good sources. All right, now we have three different types of carbohydrates. The first type of carbohydrates are known as simple. The second one are known as complex. And the last and final one is fiber. So what I'd like to do is on the upcoming slides is we'll talk about each one of those specifically. Simple carbohydrates. Simple carbohydrates, these are also known as simple sugars. They are found in fruits, some vegetables, and milk. Okay, these are naturally occurring sugars. These are sugars that are also called fructose, lactose, maltose, and sucrose. So you're looking at a food label and you look at the ingredient list. If you see those, you know that you are seeing natural sugars. One of the positives about simple carbohydrates is they are going to give you short, intense bursts of energy. The downside is that energy is only going to last for a short period of time. So it's recommended that if you're an athlete or somebody who's preparing to do something physical, that you help to build up some carbohydrates to last for a long burst of energy, but probably shortly before a game, an hour or two before that match, it's recommended that you eat simple carbohydrates because that's going to give you the energy that you're needed to probably kickstart you and get you playing at a high level. Complex carbohydrates. These are commonly known as starches. Starches is just another way of saying a complex sugar. Basically, you're talking many sugars linked together, and because you have many sugars linked together, they tend to lose the sweetness that you and I might think of sugar. So when you're thinking of pasta and breads and things like that, you and I don't think of them as being as being sweet or sugary, but they are. They are sugar, and actually of the 45 to 65% of your total calories, the majority of those calories should come from a complex source. These are your grains, your bread, your pasta, beans, root vegetables such as potatoes, great sources of carbohydrates, very low in calories, and give you long bursts of energy. Okay, fiber. Now fiber is really important, and many people probably don't think of fiber as being a carbohydrate, but fiber is actually found in the tough, stringy parts of fruits, vegetables, and grains. Many of the peels that are on your fruits and vegetables contain high amounts of fiber. Celery would be an example of a vegetable that is really high in fiber. It is a special form of a carbohydrate. Your body cannot digest the fiber or use that fiber as energy. So when you look at a food label and it tells you approximately how many grams of fiber are in that, really what you have to understand is there's a caloric intake there, but the fiber itself will not be digested. Okay, but the fiber does have an important function. As you can see, it helps to reduce cancer, it also helps with heart disease, and it can also help with type 2 diabetes. Probably the most important function that fiber has is it does help move waste through your system. Fiber kind of attaches itself to the walls of your intestines and it kind of binds food together and it helps to pull the solid waste out of your system. It helps to prevent constipation, appendicitis, and other intestinal problems as well. It's recommended that approximately 26 to 38 grams of fiber per day. The older you are, the more important fiber becomes. Just like a new car. When that new car is purchased, every time you turn the key, the engine starts up, it's good to go, it's reliable, it's dependable, etc. Very much like our bodies as well. As that car gets older, it's less dependable, it's more important that you maintain it, more important you take it in for regular checkups, you change the oil, etc. Very much like our bodies. As we get older, nutrition becomes more and more important. It's more important we have certain types of nutrients, and fiber is an example of that. As we get older, we need to make sure that we are reaching our fiber intake. Once again, 26 to 38 grams of fiber per day. This slide right here is going to talk a little bit about how do carbohydrates actually work. Now, actually, carbohydrates and their function and their role in their body, it's actually quite complex. Some of you may have taken a biology course or chemistry class and maybe remember a teacher talking about the Krebs cycle and about how your body can convert sugars and ATP and ADP. It's actually fairly complicated, but what we need to know for our class and for this course is just a really basic understanding of what happens when you eat a carbohydrate. First thing that happens is your body's going to take that carbohydrate and it's going to convert it into glucose. Okay, so it's going to take a maltose, a sucrose, whatever. It's going to take those sugars and it's going to convert it into glucose. Then what your body has to do is your body has to make a decision. Do I need this energy right now? If I'm laying on the couch, if I'm being sedentary and whatever, and my body senses that there's really not a need for that sugar at the time, my body will then take that glucose and it's going to convert it into glycogen. Okay, glycogen is nothing more than stored sugar or stored glucose. Your body will store that in muscles, around organs such as the liver. Okay, your body can store roughly 1 pound of glycogen. Now, some people who are like long distance runners, marathon runners, etc., some of those people have actually trained their bodies to hold more than 1 pound of glycogen, but the average typical person can hold roughly 1 pound of glycogen. Now, as I continue, or if you or somebody else were to continue to eat sugar, and they're not burning off their stored glycogen, they're not active, then what ends up happening is any stored sugar, any stored glycogen, okay, then can and will be stored as fat. So you may have that individual who is eating healthy, but at the same time they're not physically active and they're not burning off their calories and they're not burning off stored glycogen. Even an apple, even a piece of fruit, other pieces of fruit or vegetables, those could be stored as fat if your body doesn't sense that there's a need to use it for energy. So it's just really important that we understand that when it's all said and done at the end of the day, as important as all these nutrients are, it really comes down to calories. How many calories am I consuming? How many calories am I burning? Am I maintaining? Am I gaining? Or am I losing weight? And that's no different with carbohydrates. So once again, quick review. I eat a sugar, my body converts that sugar to glucose. If my body needs it for energy at that time, I've got the energy. If my body doesn't need it, it stores it as glycogen. Once again, my body can store roughly 1 pound of glycogen. If I continue to eat sugars and my body continues to convert it into glycogen and continue to store it, once I've met that 1 pound threshold, anything I eat above and beyond that will eventually be stored as fat unless I find a way to burn off that glycogen. That's really it with carbohydrates. I think it's just really important that we understand that when you look at carbohydrates, you do have 3 of them again: simple, compound, and then you also have, or complex, and then you also have your fiber. And going back to the complex carbohydrates real quickly, it is encouraged that the bulk of our diet come from complex carbohydrates, but you need to give yourself at least 4 hours to digest. So if I have a game tonight at 7, I really shouldn't be eating any complex carbohydrates after, maybe 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, because that game would start and my body would be using oxygen in an attempt to break down the carbohydrates. At the same time, I need the oxygen to perform, and I have a conflict of interest going on there.